Paraguay is full of scams, and today I'm going to reveal the 5 biggest scams in Paraguay that you must avoid at all costs. Scam number 1 is the real estate developer scam. How the real estate developer scam works is obviously the developer has to raise a certain amount of money to complete the development, the apartment building, whatever it is. What happens oftentimes is, let's say it's an unknown developer or a smaller developer, maybe they're trying out a new format, new building, something that's unproven, who knows. What happens oftentimes is they fail to raise sufficient money to complete the development, which leads to you not getting what you paid for. This is very common. Very recently, I have talked to a British couple who are also clients of Nomad Elite. They have informed me about a very similar situation where they had purchased from a developer in Spain. And this happened over 20 years ago. And the developer did not refund the payment to our clients. What happened? Well, our clients had to wait for over 2 decades for the Spanish court to rule in their favor so that the developer would refund the money. It took, I think, 21 years. It took over 20 years for them to recoup their money. Given the times of inflation we're in, they lost at least half of their money over 2 decades. Probably lost about 60 to 70% of their money. How can you assure that this won't happen to you in Paraguay or in any geographic location? You want to invest in proven developers, in some of the largest developers, and you want to be investing in projects that work. So when you go to a real estate developer, let's say you work with us, we only promote projects that are proven, that work. It's like the 6th building, the 12th building, and units have sold like crazy before. Those are the kind of developments you want to be buying into. You don't want to be buying into an unproven development. You don't want to be doing business with an unproven developer, with an unheard of developer. You want to be very mindful about this because it's easy to transfer the money and it's very difficult to impossible to recoup your money should something go wrong. Scam number 2, visa agents. This is a big one. In our industry, there are a ton of visa agents that promise things they cannot deliver. We're talking about residence permits, we're talking about company formation, we're talking about other relocation services. They can't deliver. And sometimes promises are being made that are just outrageous. They can never be true. Let me give you some examples. Some visa agents, relocation agents, promise expedited residency card delivery, but it takes the government, say, 90 days to deliver residency in Paraguay. Some visa agents claim that they can do it in a day, a week, a month, maybe 40 days. This is not a good system to be buying into. You don't want to get involved in anything that could potentially harm your residency here in Paraguay. It's important to do things by the books. And you want to be careful with this because the legal process is in place for a reason, and sometimes shortcuts exist. But do you really want to be risking your residency status in Paraguay just to get your residency a month or 2 months faster? What happens sometimes, and I have seen such situations play out for some of our clients who had previously purchased from a different visa agent and also in different countries. They were promised expedited delivery and they received it. Great. Well, not really, because the residency was not in the system. And that's a problem when you leave the country and you come back into Paraguay. It turns out that maybe your residency is not in the system. It's not legal. And consequently, it's worthless. You don't want to get yourself in a situation you cannot get out of. You could risk deportation. You could risk being denied entry. There's so many things that can go wrong, and it's really important that you work with a trusted visa agent that can help you legitimately and legally. The 3rd scam that you must avoid at all costs is the dating scam. Dating scams are very popular in Paraguay, and there are a number of things I wanted to point out here. First of all, when you're dating a woman decades younger than you, there's always a lot of risk attached to this undertaking. Typically, women don't date men that are that much older than them, especially if they're looking for genuine love. Don't get me wrong, genuine love between an older man and a younger woman can exist. And I know people that have a great relationship, marriage, it works for them. But a lot of the times it doesn't. Just like regular relationships, right? But the percentile is even higher. The larger the age gap, the more difficult for the relationship to work. Lack of commonalities, just not wanting something genuinely, lots of reasons. Dating apps are particularly dangerous in Paraguay, including Tinder, because you never know who is on the other end. A woman could have posted photos from 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You don't know until you see her in person. Sometimes women use Photoshop to polish their photos, right? Many tricks are being applied to present a better version of themselves. And that's how life works, especially in this day and age of the internet. It's much better when you meet people in person. You approach a woman on the streets. Maybe you're dining out at a restaurant and you find the waitress attractive. There are many places where you can find women and you know exactly who you're dealing with. There's no internet involved, and you can immediately feel their personality. You can feel maybe there's a connection, maybe not. And it usually saves you a lot of time. On the downside, you're required to speak Spanish. You must understand the local culture and dating norms. And dating is different everywhere across the globe. Dating apps are very difficult, and oftentimes you don't get to meet who you think you should meet. And this holds true for a lot of men, not just when there's a larger age gap, even if you're trying to date someone of an equal age, or let's say you're looking for a smaller age gap. These problems always exist. Also, sometimes people hide things from you, such as children. Maybe they're in another relationship. So many things can be hidden online. And of course you can argue that even if I meet a woman locally here in Asunción, Paraguay, she could still be hiding things from me. And you're right about that. However, you know exactly who you're dealing with. You can see with your eyes. You can see the person in front of you, who she is, what she looks like. You can see her figure. You can get a feel for her personality. Online, you can't do that. Yes, you can shorten the path by using a video call, and that's fair enough. However, dating locally, meeting someone in person here in Asunción, Paraguay is just the better option, in my opinion. Another scam that you must avoid at all costs is the bribe. The police bribe. Now, bribes exist in a lot of emerging countries. And oftentimes police want to get a bribe out of you because the minimum salary, and many people are getting paid minimum wage or very close to it, maybe a little bit higher, it's very difficult for them to make ends meet. So they take the law in their own hands. This is nothing new. This is very prominent across Latin America. It is very prominent across Southeast Asia. It's also very prominent across Africa. And to be fair, also certain parts of Eastern Europe are not completely clean yet. Like I said, the biggest problem is the low minimum wage and the cost of living. It's just impossible for people to make ends meet. So when you get pulled over by a cop in Paraguay, it can happen that they want to get a bribe out of you. How do you deal with a situation like this? What is the best solution? You can just tell them to write you a ticket. And if that requires you going to the police station, do it. Because usually they don't want to do it. However, one thing I actually forgot to add is that oftentimes the bribe happens without any wrongdoing on your end. If you have done something wrong and the police officer gives you a ticket, by all means go pay it. But if you were pulled over for no reason and if you haven't done anything wrong and the police officer is trying to get a bribe out of you, then just tell him to write you up. Ask for your ticket. Maybe you have to go to the local police station with them. Just tell them you're willing to do it and see what their response is. Oftentimes they don't want that because it takes them more time and they're not going to make money from it. They do make money from bribes, but taking you to the local police station and giving you a ticket is a lot more work, and oftentimes it just does not serve their purpose. They don't want it. So if you want to avoid something like this from playing out. Obviously, be aware of the traffic rules, obey the traffic rules, and always be polite when you're being pulled over by a police officer, and just ask them how you can help. But if a bribe is the only thing that's on their mind, just tell them to give you a ticket and pay it. But like I said, oftentimes they're unwilling to do so. Scam number 5, the apartment rental deposit scam. This scam is very prominent across the emerging world. Why? The rule of law is not very strong here in Asunción, Paraguay. Oftentimes you put down an apartment rental deposit with the expectation for the owner to return it at the end of your lease. This does not happen at all times. Sometimes you did something wrong, you damaged something, maybe you stole something, or whatever you did, the landlord had a good reason to keep your deposit or only issue a partial refund. However, there are cases where the owner just keeps the apartment rental deposit for no reason other than personal enrichment. What can you do about this? Not very much. Some people have had a hard time getting their deposits back in Paraguay. It's the unfortunate truth. And a lot of landlords ask for 2 months deposit before they rent an apartment to you. They also ask for a guarantor. It must be a Paraguayan. Sometimes you don't have a guarantor. You haven't been in Paraguay for long enough yet. You haven't built any relationships. And maybe you don't want to use a company to help you out with the guarantor problem, because they also charge you a fee. Fees are ramping up pretty quickly. Here's what you can do. If the landlord disagrees, just find another one. If they don't agree with you, if they say, hey, you must have a guarantor, and you're like, hey, I don't have one, and they're like, hey, okay, you can put down 3 or 4 months deposit, don't do it. Just don't do it. Just move on to another landlord, and you will find people who are much more lenient with you. And oftentimes it takes 3 to 5 landlords to find one that you can bond with and someone who understands your situation. And always negotiate. Negotiation is the key in apartment renting. It really is. So if they ask for 2 months deposit, just ask if you can put down 1 month deposit. And you want to obviously present yourself in the best way possible. And the real estate agent charges half a month in commission. So let's say your rent is 5 million Paraguayan guarani, the real estate agent gets 2.5 million. But one thing you need to understand, the real estate agent is just in place to help you find an apartment. But once the contract has been signed and you have received the keys to the apartment, normally all communication is kept between you and the landlord. So the real estate agent won't help you from that point on. So it's really important that you have a good relationship with the landlord. And in my opinion, it's even more important to have a good relationship with the landlord than the real estate agent, because the real estate agent, here in Paraguay, the real estate agents are not going to help you a lot of the times should you have problems. It's important for me to mention this because sometimes people come here with the expectation that, hey, I have a real estate agent. I paid him half a month commission. They're supposed to help me out in a situation like this where the landlord refuses to return my deposit. No, they're not obligated to do that. Ideally, there should be an escrow, because an escrow is a neutral party that acts on behalf of both the landlord and the tenant. Should issues arise, the escrow steps in and decides what's right and what's wrong. However, an escrow doesn't exist here in Paraguay. With that being said, it's really important to have a good relationship with the landlord and again, negotiate, try to put down as little deposit as possible and have a good relationship with your landlord. That's very important. Are there any other scams that you must avoid during your time in Paraguay? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you're interested in obtaining residency in Paraguay or purchasing real estate from a trusted developer, or maybe you want to rent an apartment, contact us. We would love to work with you. We would love to help you obtain residency in Paraguay, help you purchase real estate, and assist you in any way possible. Please book a consultation. You should see our website displayed right on the screen. There's also a link in the description of the video. Thank you so much for watching Nomad Elite. We appreciate your attendance and we see you on the next video.